to appreciate how perfect the March calendar girl outfit is. I mean, just look at that, the black dress with the white cream coat and the flowers and the like pop of red with the gloves and the belt. I'm sorry, that is so fabulous that I want one myself, and I'm kind of hugely jealous of the Calendar Girls ensemble as always. Although actually I have another little calendar over here that I keep meaning to show you guys because it's pretty much hilarious. Do you see this? Great expectations. So every single month, here, let's go back to January. It's from Paper Source, Cat Tails. The first month, January, was Meow Be Dick. And then we had Ham Yowlet. And yeah, expectations. And as you can see on the front, there is totally a Jane Austen cat coming along, so I can't wait for that one. But yes, my March has been off to a good start. I have been reading The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster for middle grade March. My family loves this book, but somehow I skipped it growing up. I have no idea how. It is so wonderful. I think one of the reviews at the back called it full of whimsy, wisdom, and wordplay. And the wordplay in particular is so strong. This is like, you know that like relative who, when you say hey, they say hay is for horses, and like just pick apart like every last, word choice that you use. This is like that on a totally different level. The incredible lands that our hero Milo journeys through are unexpected, and everything is wordplay, but everything is also really philosophical and meaningful and metaphorical and allegorical, and it's very, very fun. Here, let's see. I loved the maestro conducting the sunrise and the colors, and then I also loved this, the Silent Valley. Look at this. This is the Sound Keeper. Isn't that lovely, she sighed. It's my favorite program, 15 minutes of silence, and after that there's half hour of quiet, and then an interlude of lull. Why, did you know that there are almost as many kinds of stillness as there are sounds? But sadly enough, no one pays any attention to them these days. Have you ever heard the wonderful silence just before the dawn? Or the quiet and calm just as a storm ends? Or perhaps you know the silence when you haven't the answer to a question you've been asked, or the hush of a country road at night, or the expectant pause in a room full of people when someone is just about to speak, or most beautiful of all, the moment after the door closes and you're all alone in the whole house. Each one is different, and all very beautiful if you listen carefully. Isn't that lovely? Just so many fun things like that, and interesting observations. I love this. I feel like this encapsulates kind of the theme of the book. Milo is saying, "That's absurd." His head was spinning from all the numbers and questions. "That may be true," the dodecahedron acknowledged, "but it's completely accurate, and as long as the answer is right, who cares if the question is wrong? If you want sense, you'll have to make it yourself." That's like basically what every character has to say to Milo in a nutshell. But of course, it's because rhyme and reason are not on their throne, and they have to be found and brought back. I do love the way there's just such a fun juxtaposition of opposites, and the importance of finding the middle way, because when you take anything to even the Sound Keeper appreciating silence, she is possibly appreciating silence a little too much. Absolutely, absolutely love this one. If you've never encountered it, I would highly, highly recommend making time for it. Another middle grade March read is The Little White Horse. I have just started this. I'm rereading this for our book club. It's been a while since I last reread it, and it's just been so delightful. This version has such lovely illustrations. Even in the first pages, there are so many great observations. Maria Merriweather is our heroine, and she is trying to comfort herself on this long carriage ride. The boots she had on today were calculated to raise the lowest spirits, for they were made of the softest gray leather, sewn with crystal beads round the tops, and were lined with snow-white lamb's wool. The crystal beads, as it happened, could not be seen, because Maria's gray silk dress and warm gray wool pelisse, also trimmed with white lamb's wool, reached to her ankles. But she herself knew they were there, and the thought of them gave her a moral strength that can scarcely be overestimated. She rested herself against the thought of those beads, just as in a lesser degree she rested herself against the thought of the piece of purple ribbon that was wound about her slender waist beneath the pelisse, the little bunch of violets that was tucked so far away inside the recesses of her gray velvet bonnet that it was scarcely visible, and the gray silk mittens adorning the small hands that were hidden inside the big white muff. For Maria was one of your true aristocrats. The perfection of the hidden things was even more important to her than the outward show. Isn't that such a great little observation, and also a great outfit? And then I have a couple other books here. I did a thrift books order. This book I do not actually know much about, but I'm very excited to check it out. It's called The Little Book Room by Eleanor Farjeon. She wrote an Advent hymn, People Look East, that I absolutely love. But she was also a children's book, children's writer, and I don't think I've read much by her. So I'm very excited to check this out. I believe it is a collection of stories. And then this is another one I've never heard of, taking some risks here, although I love that Advent hymn so much that this feels safe. And I do love G.K. Chesterton, especially when it comes to his quirky fiction scenarios like The Poet and the Lunatics, Napoleon of Notting Hill. This is called The Club of Queer Trades. The description is: British writers have long enjoyed inventing preposterous clubs with eccentric members, like P.G. Wodehouse, unusual qualifications for membership, and zany rules of behavior. The brilliant and gifted G.K. Chesterton was no exception. In the Club of Queer Trades, candidates qualify for admission by creating a thoroughly original profession and proving they can make a living from it. So that just sounds very, very fun. And then this, okay, so I ordered a different version. I emailed them, and they are, Thrift Books is sending me the correct one, because I did not order this paperback. I ordered one to match the other Mary Stuarts on my shelf, which, okay, so I'm hoping for one of these travel guide covers. I know I've complained about this before, because they have travel guide covers of Mary Stuart's, and then these just sort of elegant lady covers, and I do like both of them, but the problem is they have the same ISBN, so when you order online, even if like the photo shows one cover, you might get the other one. So who knows which version of Touch Not the Cat will show up, but at least it should be one of these two and not the not the 70s, not this 70s mass market paperback that I got. So yes, lots and lots of good reading options to start my spring with. There's just a puddle of cat on the floor. Better clean up this puddle of cat. I don't know if you guys can hear the raindrops pitter-pattering, but it is a very rainy spring day. Hopefully this is bringing all of the lovely flowers and green back to life though, because here it is April already. I hope you all had a very happy and blessed Easter. I didn't quite manage to get this March reading wrap-up filmed before the end of the month, but I did manage to get a Substack post up for the end of Lent that I'd had in mind for a really long time about just finding better online rhythms and staying rooted in reality. And part of what I was talking about was not worrying about posting on a certain schedule, but just letting a video or a story be ready to be told and making sure you're not missing out on real life just because you want to get, you know, a video or some online post up. I feel like it evolved in that way over the past couple of years and just over the time that I've been on YouTube. And it's so easy to fall into bad habits online. So I hope you'll hop over and check that out on bookishprincess.substack.com. If you'd like, if you don't have better things to do in real life, or books to read. I did want to fill you all in on what I've been reading this month. I do really enjoy having the monthly wrap-ups. I feel like I'm gonna try to keep those on my posting schedule. Although I also have a bunch of travel videos that I'd really like to get up. I did go to DC this month for the cherry blossoms. They were spectacular. So hopefully I'll have time to get that video edited, but we'll just have to see how that works out. First of all, the books want to be talked about. So I loved The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. I read this for middle grade March. I don't know how on earth I didn't read it before, but it was just so fantastic, and these quirky illustrations that you get throughout. I thought I would read you a couple little quotations from the end. So this is like a little bit spoilery. If you do not want spoilers, there is your warning. Milo is, of course, trying to get to the castle in the air where rhyme and reason have been banished from the kingdom, but there are all these demons that stand in his way, and just the symbolism of them all is so extraordinary. And the way he uses all the gifts that he's gathered from the people he's met in the kingdom to kind of defeat these demons almost by accident is so great. Each one, as they reveal themselves, is so terrifying. Here's one. I am the terrible Trivium, demon of petty tasks and worthless jobs, ogre of wasted effort and monster of habit. Milo asks why he only wants to do unimportant things. If you only do the easy and useless jobs, you'll never have to worry about the important ones, which are so difficult. You just won't have the time. There's always something to do to keep you from what you really should be doing. And if it weren't for that dreadful magic staff, you'd never know how much time you were wasting. Oh gosh, and then this other one, what was his name again? The senses taker. It was the sounds from that wonderful sound valley that saved Milo from the senses taker, because his bag of gifts slips, and the sound that breaks out is the sound of happy laughter, and it kind of wakes him up. And he realizes that this mirage he had isn't really there. And the census taker says, I warned you I was the census taker. I help people find what they're not looking for, hear what they're not listening for, run after what they're not chasing, and smell what isn't even there. And furthermore, he cackled, hopping around gleefully on his stubby legs, I'll steal your sense of purpose, take your sense of duty, destroy your sense of proportion, and but for one thing, you'd be helpless yet. What's that? Asked Milo fearfully. As long as you have the sound of laughter, he groaned unhappily. I cannot take your sense of humor, and with it, you've nothing to fear from me. So very, very fun to see all of the lessons Milo learns getting through. There's the map. Getting through. And then my other middle grade March read was The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Goode. We read this for our book club. It's been such a delight to revisit this. Actually, there was a line in this towards the end where she's meeting the villain, and he's not very nice, and she's really having to stand up for herself. But they've made this bargain, and the villain laughs in kind of an evil way, but Maria says that the fact that he could laugh made her realize there was good in him yet, and that he could be trusted, which kind of reminds me of that line from The Phantom Tollbooth. I absolutely love Elizabeth Goode. I've mentioned her many times. I really love her adult novels. The Damaroche trilogy is wonderful. A City of Bells is my absolute favorite. This is a children's book, so in some ways it doesn't go quite as deep as the adult novels do, especially on the topic of faith. And you do still see faith here, but you also have so much magic. And I love how it's kind of matter-of-fact magic. It's like a light magic. These unbelievable, fantastical things happen, and yet in a way it's totally normal that they happen. You just kind of accept them with a nod. And she embroiders her story with so many charming details. I was noting down so many lovely passages. This is the perfect time of year, spring, to read it because the book opens in the spring. Beyond the battlements, she could see right over into Moonacre Park. Never in all her short life had she seen such wonderful trees, giant beeches clad in silver armor, rugged oaks, splendid chestnuts, and delicate birches shimmering with light. They had no leaves as yet, but the buds were swelling, and there seemed a mist of pale color among their branches. Amethyst and chrome and rose and blue all melting into each other, like the colors of a rainbow that shines for a moment through the clouds and then changes its mind and goes away again. Isn't that lovely? Because right now, looking out, that's exactly what I'm seeing. The buds at just just that moment. How many quotations should I let myself read? Here's another one about spring. The promise of spring was a magic in the air that surrounded each flower and tree and scampering lamb with a sort of halo of wonder, as though it were the first flower or tree or lamb that had ever been created. It is just such a cozy book. Oh, and the illustrations. The illustrator is C. Walter Hodges. This version is by Knight Books. It's just the paperback. It came out in 1969, I believe. Here's a description of a painting of a unicorn and a lion, just like on the cover, who are galloping together, and this painting is in the drawing room. They had perhaps been galloping for years, yet the happiness that breathed from the picture was untarnished by the least shadow of impatience. Isn't that such a lovely idea? Just these little ideas that she brings in and are so beautiful. You want to stop and think. So I'm not sure if I gave a synopsis of the story, but Maria Merriweather, her parents have died and she's going to live with her uncle at Moonacre Manor, and she is discovering this ancient lore of her family and these sort of ancient sins of her ancestors that have been lingering like a curse over each generation. But with each new generation, there's always a new opportunity to break through. But it's so wonderful to see her slowly piece together the story of Moonacre, both of hundreds of years ago and also just of, you know, her uncle, and just more recent. The parlor hasn't been used in a long time when she enters it. She is the first person to play this harpsichord, and she seems to like guess this song, that like as if a song had been stored up in the harpsichord, and then she sits down and the words to the song come to her. The simple little words came easily, fitting themselves to the tune that had come out of the harpsichord. It didn't seem to her that she made them up at all. It seemed to her that they flew in from the rose garden through the open window, like a lot of butterflies, poised themselves on the point of her pen, and fell off it onto the paper. And then this is the song. Like a spear, like a sword, drawn most slenderly fine, as bright and as tempered, this lady of mine. Like the wind, like the waves, like winged arrows in flight, as merry, my love, and as swift in delight. Like a sigh, like a song that is plucked from the strings, like the dawn and the dew and the stirring of wings. Like a star, like the moon in her glimmering pride, like the ghost of a dream to her love denied. So the name of Moonacre is not a coincidence. There's very much a theme of sun and moon. The lion is like the sun, and the unicorn, the little white horse, is like the moon. I just love how that plays out, and I feel like it's kind of summarized in this line from the end. This isn't really a spoiler though, because the parson himself doesn't know what Mariah. See, should I say Mariah or Maria? I think I'm saying Mariah because of Mariah Bertram in Mansfield Park, but maybe it should just be Maria Merriweather. Anyway, this is the character of the old parson speaking to Maria. All of the characters are so absolutely one of a kind. There's the cook, there's Sir Benjamin, her uncle, there's the parson. Oh, it's just, how do you even get over how amazing these characters are? Elizabeth Goudge, the way she draws characters, they're so warm and individual and unique and wonderful. Your Royal Highness, the deep-laid schemes of managing women have never until now commended themselves to me, but in yours I willingly entangle myself, for the witchery of the moon is in them, and so brave is the moon, confronting so great a darkness with so small a face, that a man who does not count himself her willing slave is a born fool. So Maria does have some schemes. However, one of the themes that I really loved is she learns to have patience and to wait, and she has all these questions when she arrives at Moonacre, and she kind of wants to just pester people or wants to explore Moonacre Manor and just open every door, but she realizes slowly but surely that actually she can wait for things to unfold in their own time, and that's the best way to do it. I love how Elizabeth Goudge plants all these seeds of Maria's wondering, okay, where is the kitchen? Who is the cook? Where does the cook live? And we very slowly, along with Maria, get the answer to all of these different questions. Old parson gave her this piece of advice. Excessive female curiosity is not to be commended. Nip it in the bud, my dear, while there is still time. Gentlemen, it seemed, did not like females to be curious, though it was difficult to see how one could find out what one wanted to know if one wasn't. Sir Benjamin had not shown her the kitchen yesterday, she remembered suddenly. Perhaps he did not want her to see it yet. It seemed to her that the omission was much the same as marking private upon the door. Perhaps she had better wait. Isn't that such an intriguing way of putting it? Realizing that if someone's not ready to tell you something, just the fact that they didn't tell you is like the word private on a door. And maybe if you can, you should just wait. I absolutely loved revisiting this. The character of Rolf is so interesting. We were talking in the book club about how he reminds me very much of Aslan from Chronicles of Narnia. There's this one line where Miss Heliotrope, who is Maria's governess, she's looking at Rolf, who, we were talking about this in the book club too. Some people, if you don't have the illustrations, you will see that Rolf is described as a dog, like just a weird looking dog. But if you have the illustrations, like you know what Rolf is supposed to be from the very beginning. Miss Heliotrope says this about Rolf. He's certainly a great protection, though sometimes, Maria, one's protector can be almost as alarming as what he protects one from. And I do feel like that sums up Rolf. And also it sums up, your relationship with God. In religious texts, they talk about the fear of God. There's a line in the Bible, what is man that God should be mindful of him? We just had Easter. We know how much God loves us because we've seen Christ's sacrifice on the cross. But there is still this fear of so vast a creator who loves us so much. So yes, if you've never read The Little White Horse, I would highly, highly recommend it. It is 100% worth the trouble getting it. I know it was a little tricky for some people to find copies of it, but it absolutely is worth the effort. My other main read from the month was The Long Loneliness by Dorothy Day. We did do a live show of this on Palm Sunday, so I'll make sure I leave that linked down below. We had quite a fun discussion. We definitely went off on some tangents. I know we all had some issues with the book. This is an autobiography. Dorothy Day is associated with the Catholic social worker movement, so she was very passionate about giving back to the poor. She goes back in this all the way to the beginning of her life and describes, growing up. She was always interested in religion and always drawn towards God, but in college she got caught up in a lot of, modern ways of thinking and communism. And it is beautiful to see kind of the gradual process where she felt, drawn back towards God. Although, like I said, we had some issues, especially when she described, kind of her earlier life and her earlier beliefs. There were some things that didn't seem to fully click, or she would describe how she felt then, but she didn't sort of modify it to say, well, now I think this. And I think in many ways she didn't change some of her beliefs. She still had very strong political beliefs even after she became a Catholic. I didn't really fully click with Dorothy Day, but it was beautiful to see her love of God and to see her love for the poor and her commitment to works of charity. And there were many, many beautiful lines and passages that I highlighted. I liked this one. Tradition. We scarcely know the word anymore. We are afraid to be either proud of our ancestors or ashamed of them. We scorn nobility in name and fact. We cling to a bourgeois mediocrity. And later on, she quotes G.K. Chesterton saying, "Tradition is democracy extended through time. Tradition means giving the vote to that most obscure of all classes, our ancestors. Tradition is the democracy of the dead. Tradition refuses to submit to the small and arrogant oligarchy of those who are walking about." I need to go and read that G.K. Chesterton book. Her autobiography really is a stunning reading list, as it were. I was trying to highlight different books and authors she mentioned because I want to go look them up, but there were honestly too many. This was her describing her childhood and her mother. She said, "Her mother reigned over the supper table as a queen and had as much interest in entertaining her 4 children as if we were all adult friends in for a party." Isn't that charming? This also made me stop and think, our parents did nothing to offer us distraction and entertainment. We were forced to meet our moods and overcome them. That's kind of what I was writing about in my Substack post, just about how, our phones make it so easy for us to just get mired in distraction and entertainment. But what Dorothy Day says is so important. Like, we need to be able to meet our moods and overcome them. Here's a good passage for spring. "It is so hard to say how this delight in prayer grew on me. The year before I was saying as I planted seeds in the garden, I must believe in these seeds, that they fall into the earth and grow into flowers and radishes and beans. It is a miracle to me because I do not understand it. Neither do naturalists understand it. The very fact that they use glib technical phrases does not make it any less of a miracle, and a miracle we all accept. Then why not accept God's mysteries?" Her love of her daughter also really leads her to a love of God, because she realizes, she says, "No human creature could receive or contain so vast a flood of love and joy as I often felt after the birth of my child. With this came the need to worship, to adore. I had heard many say that they wanted to worship God in their own way and did not need a church in which to praise him, nor a body of people with whom to associate themselves. But I did not agree with this. My very experience as a radical, my whole makeup led me to want to associate associate myself with others, with the masses, in loving and praising God. And then she says, the Catholic Church had come down through the centuries since the time of Peter, and far from being dead, she claimed and held the allegiance of the masses of people in all the cities where I had lived. They poured in and out of her doors on Sundays and holy days for novenas and missions. What if they were compelled to come in by the law of the Church, which said they were guilty of mortal sin if they did not go to Mass every Sunday? They obeyed that law. They were given a chance to show their preference. They accepted the Church. It may have been an unthinking, unquestioning faith, and yet the chance certainly came again and again. Do I prefer the Church to my own will? Even if it was only the small matter of sitting at home on a Sunday morning with the papers? And the choice was the Church. I loved her insistence on building community as kind of the antidote to the long loneliness. I almost wish she had just written a book, more of a spiritual book, about the idea of the long loneliness, because whenever it came up, it was so interesting and beautiful. The idea is that we're all lonely without God, and that in some ways, this life is just a long loneliness because we're not with God perfectly in this life. But we can work for Him, and we can combat the long loneliness in different ways, and one of the main ways is in community. So yes, Dorothy Day was certainly a very thought-provoking read for Lent. I am co-hosting and taking part in a readathon this month during April. Alcott April is happening. I posted my announcement video a little while ago. We're reading The Inheritance as our group read, so I've got to get started on that. Another of the challenges is to read some short stories by Louisa May Alcott, and I was looking up, doing some research, and there's something called flower fables that sounds really, really charming. It was one of Louisa May Alcott's earliest stories. I believe she wrote it for a niece or daughter of Emerson. There's a really beautiful edition of Flower Fables online that it was fairly recently published and isn't that expensive, and I really want to get it. I feel like I should read the Gutenberg version and see how much I like it, and if I like it enough, then maybe I'll invest and get myself a copy. There were some great suggestions of Louisa May Alcott works to read that I've seen in TBRs that other people have posted and in the comments on the announcement videos. Someone mentioned The American Bloomsbury, I believe was the name of it. It was about this literary community in Concord, Massachusetts that Louisa May Alcott was a part of, especially through her father, like Thoreau, Emerson, Nathaniel Hawthorne. There were just so many great writers living right there. Yeah, American Bloomsbury by Susan Cheever. So I might try to grab that at the library. Another challenge is to just read a work by one of those neighbors of Louisa May Alcott, which you could go read in my Substack post. There was a Thoreau essay that I quoted called Life Without Principle, and it really is. When Thoreau gets you, he really just knows how to kind of beat you up and show you all the things that you should be doing differently. But you could go read that Thoreau essay because it is online and it's not all that long. It's really inspiring. I'll try to remember to leave it linked in the description. Or I did leave it linked in the Substack post, bookishprincess.substack.com. I hope you're all having a really wonderful spring and getting out and rooting yourself in reality and enjoying the season. I'll talk to you all again at some point. Until then, stay bookish. Bye, friends.